Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this one, we are going to be going over how to completely rewire your brain in 30 days. Some people refer to this as a dopamine detox. That's actually not scientifically the proper term for it. I'll explain that later. But basically, resetting your brain to crave hard work instead of chasing pleasure all the time. And if you think that this video is going to be boring from the intro, then you're probably actually the kind of person that needs this video the most, and this video is going to benefit you the most if you actually apply it. So we're going to be going through a faith-based system to breaking dopamine addiction and building a firm foundation. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to do to rewire your brain, to cut out all bad habits, and learn to chase purpose over pleasure. And this is all going to be faith-based. As many of you know, I'm Christian. Everything I do is centered around that. And so this is going to apply neurological principles with business principles so that you're able to get more locked in. And this is all going to be centered around 1 Corinthians 6, 19 through 20, because your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit. And so everything that you should be doing with it should be for a higher purpose than yourself, and should ultimately be to respect God in everything you do and say. Alright, so before we get into this, let me tell you how this actually works. These dopamine traps were something that I struggled with for all of high school and most of middle school as well. I was constantly falling to lust, constantly scrolling on my phone, addicted to all sorts of short-term gratification, and had no discipline in my life. I was super ambitious. I wanted to start a business. I wanted to get into the best shape of my life. On the inside, I knew I was meant for more, but my habits didn't reflect that. On the outside, I was just living like your average high schooler who was addicted to short-term gratification and chasing pleasure with everything I did. And eventually, what it took for me was joining a mentorship and learning everything that I'm teaching you in this video to hold myself accountable every single day and truly make the changes. And it came down to 4 simple pillars that I'll be going over in this video that seem oversimplified, but if you follow them 100% and take them seriously, I guarantee they are going to make that change for you. Whatever you're struggling with, whether that be cravings with food, lust and corn, or just laziness and video games, anything like that. You can apply this to any sort of addiction or vice, and it's going to get you out of that trap the exact same way it got me out of it. So take notes and get ready to apply this in your life. Don't let this be like all the other videos you've watched this week that you've gotten the value from it, but then you move on to the next video. At some point, you have to stop consuming so much content and actually apply what you know, because I guarantee you know everything you need to do right now. So after this video is when you need to start applying that in your life. Starting now is when this is going to be different, when you're going to start shifting your mindset from someone who chases that pleasure and who is constantly learning to someone who knows what they need to do and is chasing purpose and delayed gratification to become the best version of yourself, ultimately to honor God and everything you do and say. Alright, so first let me explain what dopamine actually does to you and why the term dopamine detox is actually not accurate, even though that's what we're doing here. So basically, dopamine is the pleasure chemical. I'm sure this isn't the first video you've watched on it, so you probably know how it works. But basically, anytime you feel some sort of pleasure, your dopamine gets spiked or elevated. And so an average social media notification is going to spike that dopamine 137% above your baseline, which is pretty significant. So throughout the day, if you're just normally here, just getting that notification is going to spike it. And then, scrolling reels is just that continuous spike that's going to overload your system and cause that baseline to raise over time. So the reason the term dopamine detox is inaccurate is it's impossible to detox a neurological chemical, because you genuinely could not function without it. If you had no dopamine, you would just be sitting on the couch doing absolutely nothing. You'd have no sense of purpose, no sense of motivation, anything like that. Dopamine's the driver of all of that, so it's essential that you have dopamine in your life, and you can't just detox from it and remove it. But you can improve your sensitivity to it so that you find joy in different tasks, find pleasure in more fulfilling and rewarding tasks than simply scrolling or playing video games or watching corn or anything like that. Alright, so on average, it's going to take you 66 days to completely form a new habit or completely get over an old habit, but 30 days is going to be the most essential part of it. It's in those first 30 days that you're going to set up the systems, you're going to be able to fully detox your brain from it, and, just get reset. But after 66 days is when it's going to turn from it becoming a new habit to it just becoming a completely new version of yourself, if that makes sense. So habits like corn and eating junk food are going to cause your dopamine receptors to be 2 to 4 times more sensitive than whenever you're getting naturally rewarded. So that's going to train your brain to crave those bad habits more than the natural good habits like going to the gym or working on a business or, just doing something challenging that's going to give you more rewarding dopamine. It's not going to feel as fulfilling because you built those habits, those bad habits, which are going to release more dopamine to your brain. Alright, so let's get into how to actually do this now that you know all the science behind it and how everything works. Alright, so pillar 1 is going to be removing all of the bad habits. So that's going to be removing everything that is ultra stimulating to your brain and overstimulating and causing you to crave instant gratification rather than delayed. So in days 1 through 30, we are going to completely eliminate all of this. Corn is the first thing. It's going to be the highest dopamine hit of any behavior that you can do, and it's going to completely destroy your baseline motivation and your confidence. If you're someone that consistently struggles with lust, I do have another video on that. Go ahead and watch that after if that's you. But you know that after that happens, you have absolutely zero motivation to do anything with yourself. It will send signals to your brain that you have just accomplished something and that it's okay to rest for the rest of the day. And that's something that is just not okay. And it's going to destroy your confidence as well because it trains you to look at women as objects rather than, as God's creation. And so this is overall the worst behavior of any of these unless you're, a raging alcoholic or doing hard drugs or something like that. So that's going to be the highest leverage action you can take to remove and the most effective thing you can do. Alright, and then next, after that is going to be social media scrolling. So the unpredictability of social media sends reward loops that mirror slot machines in a casino neurologically. So your brain doesn't know what's coming next, and so it's constantly anticipating new things, and then your dopamine is getting spiked, and it's that constant unpredictability that causes it to be so addicting. And that's something you need to break in that first little bit. You may be thinking right now this is oversimplified. The next slide is going to go over how to actually replace those habits and how to remove them for good. So I'll get to that in a second. Next is going to be processed sugar and refined carbs. So these are going to spike your dopamine and your insulin at the same time and then crash both. So you're going to feel super good in the moment. You're going to get the hit of energy, the hit of pleasure, but then they're both going to crash, which is going to lead to more cravings and lower energy. So this is going to be chips, candy, ice cream, just any processed food that's, use common sense. You know what's unhealthy. Now you still can have carbs and sugar as long as they're not processed and refined. So that's going to be white rice instead of pasta, having fruit instead of candy, having Greek yogurt and honey instead of ice cream. Simple stuff like that might sound kind of boring at first. You'll get used to it. And it's ultimately going to be the same macronutrients for your body, but it's going to be way healthier, not spike your insulin, and retrain your dopamine. Then the last thing is video games. So they are engineered feedback loops designed to keep you hooked. And what's so dangerous about video games is they make you feel like you're being productive. Because in the games, you're accomplishing all these tasks, doing all these things, building, achieving stuff, and it makes you feel like you're actually being productive. Whereas in the real world, you're just sitting, rotting on your couch. And the reason they're so addictive is because they're sending that same signal to your brain, but it's temporary in the video game. After you get off it, you're going to be like, man, what did I just do with all that time? Whereas in real life, if you're actually doing that stuff in the video game in real life, it's going to feel fulfilling because you're actually going to have those long-term results. Alright, so why is this stuff so important? Well, every time you remove a stimulus, your brain begins restoring dopamine sensitivity. So every one of those bad habits that you take out allows your brain to rebuild sensitivity to finding dopamine in stuff that is actually purposeful. So in that first week, you're probably going to feel terrible. The withdrawal symptoms are completely normal, but just know that it's your brain recalibrating. And the reason so many people are stuck in this trap of, constantly going back to YouTube, finding a new video on how to dopamine detox, trying it for a couple days and it never working, it's not because the systems don't work, but it's because they're not able to get past that first week. That's the hardest amount of time. And so you're not able to rewire your brain to crave discipline while you're flooding it with constant stimulation, which is why we have to go completely cold turkey on all of these habits for the first amount of time. It's going to suck, it's going to be extreme, but it's what you need to do. Because if you're constantly stimulated, you're not able to build up those good habits, and you might as well just cut it out completely for a month rather than slowly cutting it out for 6 months and not being able to stay consistent and look back in 6 months to a year and realize you didn't make any progress. So God designed our brains for earned reward and not shortcuts. So the way we're designed neurologically and physically is to work hard for results, and that's when we get the gratification. But over time, humans have been trained to crave instant gratification. Think about in old times when you would rely on dopamine to go hunt for your food or to go provide for your family. Like, that's something that you had to do and that you would feel fulfilled after. But now with phones, with everything else, with how weak society is, that's changed to instant gratification, and that's something that is not good, that's completely normalized now, but something that needs to change. Alright, so pillar 2, how are we going to replace these bad habits? So we're going to set up systems and automatic habits that are going to replace those bad habits, because it's going to be impossible to just cut out the bad habits if you don't have something to do instead. You're just going to have all this free time, you're going to be bored, and that's whenever you fall back into them. So these are going to be simple things. Instead of scrolling on your phone, listen to a podcast or watch an educational long-form YouTube video, something like this, some sort of health video or productivity video that's actually going to improve your life. And if you're thinking, well, I might not have enough time then, maybe I just scroll whenever I'm eating a snack or making food, and it's something that's like these 5-minute bursts here and there, then just cut it out. Work in silence. You don't need it then. And, just learn to live with your thoughts alone. It's going to be for small amounts of time. It's really not going to be that bad. And another thing you can do in that time is just simple breathing. Box breathing or energy breathing, you can look all of these up. They're all going to make you feel much more present, reset your dopamine, give you natural energy, calm you down, help you live in the present so much more, and it's going to be so helpful. And then, if you tend to scroll a lot after work or during meals or whatever, you can listen to a podcast in this time on something that's going to benefit you. Something that's going to teach you about your social skills or teach you about health, getting into the gym, something like that. And then before bed is when so many of these habits happen. When people fall to lust, when people are scrolling on their phone forever for 3-4 hours, then all of a sudden it's 1 a.m. and you have work in 5 hours. And so start reading before bed, and journaling too if you have the time for it. So when I was struggling and needed to replace these habits with new habits, I started reading 10 pages every day before bed. And that was super simple, super easy to do, a super small amount of time, but would make me feel much more fulfilled and satisfied and, motivated to go to bed. So that was reading. I got over there on that shelf, you can't really see, but I got all of David Goggins' books, ton of self-improvement books, Atomic Habits, Essentialism is what I'm reading right now, all sorts of books like that that are going to be feeding your brain. And then you can also read fiction. It's going to help you fall asleep faster. So The Alchemist is a great place to start, or The Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit books, just great stories that have life lessons built in and are just going to make you feel amazing and, just feel positive. And then replace processed foods with whole food alternatives. So kind of like what I went over before, just replace the Oreos, the Doritos with, a simple popcorn, a simple all-natural chip. You can honestly still be eating the same amount of calories while resetting your dopamine. So this doesn't mean that you have to starve yourself while cutting out everything else. You can eat the exact same amount of food, but just make it natural food, because the macros are going to be the same, but those micronutrients and those signals to your brain are going to be different. Alright, and then pillar 3 is going to be rebuilding your discipline. Step 1 is having the same sleep and wake times for 30 days. So many men I see fall into this trap of, going to bed maybe at 10, 11 p.m. and waking up at 6 or 7 a.m. for work every single day. And that's all to look forward to the weekend when they can stay out late, sleep in, and party. And so you're training yourself to, thug out the week to party on the weekend. And that's not sustainable. That's why you get burnt out, and why the entire week doesn't seem to be enjoyable, and why the week seems to last so long just for the weekend to go by in a breeze. So if you have the same sleep and wake times every day for those 30 days, it's going to retrain you to have the same consistent cycles every single day, and not rely on getting to the weekend to get through the week. Then we want to be having physical activity every single day. And so I have the 75 hard system in here because it's what I follow to reset my system, which I believe is 2 45-minute workouts a day. And on rest days, that can be one is walking and one is stretching. Like, it doesn't have to be super grueling exercise every day, but you want to be getting in some kind of physical activity every day, whether that be stretching, walking, hard workouts, running, swimming, anything. Just get in something to train your system. And then having a whole food diet as well. So that's going to be animal-based, nutrient-dense foods that are going to completely retrain your cravings and teach you to crave whole foods rather than junk food. So this is gonna suck at first. That first week you're gonna be craving a ton of food. It's gonna be super hard to resist the junk, but eventually you're gonna get to a point where I'm at now, where I genuinely don't even want the donut or the Oreos or whatever. Like, it sounds so much better to me to have the steak, the eggs, the avocado. That just sounds so much better. And if you're able to stick to this for a long enough time, you're going to feel the same way, and it's going to benefit your whole life. It's going to help you to live longer, help you to have more natural energy without relying on caffeine every day, everything like that. It's so good for you, mentally and physically, night and day difference, truly. So stick to the whole food diet for 30 days. If you want to take it extreme, you can cut out gluten as well, but just have the all natural foods. That's going to be a great place to start. Alright, and then the last pillar to the system is having the firm foundation every day. So that's going to be rooting your entire day in your faith and centering everything around God. So you want to be having consistent morning and night routines that are going to keep you centered on God and, just build up more friction and make it harder to fall to the bad habits. So what you can do for these 31 days is reading a proverb every morning. I believe there are 31 proverbs, might just be 30. I should know that. That's my bad. But read one proverb every morning and then really study it. Write down 2 or 3 key points you get from it and how you can practically apply it into your life. The Proverbs are completely filled with wisdom. Every single chapter is teaching you how to navigate struggles you'll have in your life, whether that be lust, whether that be bad influences, anything like that. It's what I'd say is the most applicable book in the Bible, especially in the Old Testament, where a lot of it isn't easily applicable these days. And it's going to benefit your life so much. It only takes maybe 10 minutes if you read it and really apply it and journal on it, and is going to set up your whole day for success. Start your day centered on the Lord. And then on top of that, I listen to a sermon every single morning. So this will be while I'm driving to the gym or while I'm on the treadmill or in the sauna at the gym, because I work out in the mornings first thing to, clear my head, build up my energy, everything like that. Totally a preference, but just start your day with a sermon while you're driving to work, whatever it may be. Just find sermons that can apply to you and the struggles you're dealing with and listen to them. And they're really going to just set your feet on that firm foundation. And then for these 30 days, this is going to sound really extreme as well, but avoid secular music. I thought this was dumb at first too. I was like, there's no way this rap, this music that I listen to while I'm working out is actually going to affect my mind. But it really does. And it really is interesting. And if you are really trying to take this seriously, then that shouldn't be that big of a deal. Cutting it out, but replace the secular music with worship music. I get the Christian rap can be kind of annoying sometimes or kind of cheesy. I personally don't like it myself, but just listen to Christian music. Doesn't necessarily have to be worship, but just pure music or podcasts. And for those first 30 days, that's really just going to nurture your brain and cause your brain to be dwelling on things that are godly and not things that are worldly in that time. Alright, so why does the system actually work compared to other systems that you've seen, compared to other videos? Because I know so many other guys are saying so much crap trying to sell their stuff in the process, and it ends up getting confusing and you don't know what's actually going to work. Well, this system might sound oversimplified compared to those, but it works. The reason that it's not going to work for you after this video is because you're not going to be able to make it past that first week. You're going to allow those cravings and those withdrawal symptoms to overcome your desire to change, and you're not going to be able to make it past that first week if you don't want it bad enough. And so a way to prevent this from happening is getting an accountability buddy. So many guys I see lack the accountability, and that's why they stay stuck, because they try to do it on their own and no matter how bad they want it, they're just not strong enough to do it on their own, and they need other people holding them accountable so that they're able to stay consistent. So that can be having a friend who's on the same path as you. For me, it was my best friend. We would update each other every single day, and we had a punishment in place. Like, if I were to fall to lust in that first week, I would have to give him $100. And at the time, that was something that really hurt my bank account and something that was not worth it. And so just leave your ego at the door. Don't lie about it. If you're serious about making the change, be honest and take it seriously, and make it something that's going to hurt bad enough that you have to stay consistent with it. So you want to eliminate these dopamine traps and replace them with rewarding tasks. So that's how you're going to overcome any addiction, any vice, any sin. Neuroscience backs this up, that you have to just eliminate the desire for chasing pleasure and replace that desire and replace those habits with long-term delayed gratification habits that are overall going to make you feel more fulfilled and happy in the long term rather than the short term. Alright, so what to expect in 30 days. Like I said earlier, days 1 through 7 are going to suck. You're probably going to be in a bad mood. You're going to be really irritable, low energy, have cravings that are just out of control, wanting junk food, everything like that. And the reason you're feeling this is because your brain is recalibrating. You're having to retrain your brain that this isn't how we live anymore. We're a new person. And so those dopamine receptors are healing and getting retrained to crave long-term, delayed gratification rather than short-term pleasure. And the way you got to do this is shift your identity from being someone who chases pleasure to someone who lives for God and lives for purpose over pleasure. Because if you're constantly telling yourself that I'm a failure, that I am addicted to Instagram or corn or whatever it is, then you're never going to overcome it, because you're telling yourself that that's something you struggle with. So you have to reframe that to, I am not someone who struggles with this habit, and that is not me. And so that's how you're going to resist these cravings and allow your body to recalibrate in that first week. Every time those temptations come in, because it's going to be like every 5 minutes in this first week, you're just, nope, I'm not that guy anymore. No negotiations. And respect yourself enough to hold yourself accountable to that. Alright, days 8 through 14. The fog is going to start to lift. You're going to start feeling more clarity in your brain. Your sleep is going to start improving. You're going to start to stop feeling that empty void in you where you're constantly craving the dopamine. Cravings are still going to be there, but they're going to start to settle, become more manageable. Overall, you're going to be feeling better, and your energy and motivation is going to start increasing. You'll be able to get up in the morning without relying on scrolling or habits like that to get out of bed. Days 15 to 21 is when you're going to have this new baseline. Those hard tasks that you struggle with are going to become a routine and become more frictionless. Getting up in the morning and reading your Bible is going to be something you don't even have to think about anymore, and something that's just a habit. Those natural rewards are going to become satisfying. You're going to start feeling more fulfilled from eating the healthy food than the junk food, or from going to the gym or listening to the podcast rather than scrolling and playing video games. And your dopamine sensitivity is going to be restored. In this time, you're not going to be scrolling, you're not going to be relying on that short-term instant gratification, and your body is going to be able to appreciate the long-term habits so much more. And then days 22 through 30, I don't want to sound dramatic here, but this is when you're really going to start feeling like a completely different kind of person. If you're able to stay consistent 100% cold turkey on the bad habits and locked in on the good habits for this time. It sounds extreme, but it's what you got to do. In this time, your identity is going to completely shift. You're going to be a completely new man who doesn't struggle with those addictions, who, is freed from those vices and is in this new system. All of those systems are going to feel automatic. You're not even going to think. You're not going to have that turmoil in your brain that's like, well, should I go to the gym? Should I not? Should I read my Bible or should I scroll? It's going to feel automatic now. And so that stuff that before is feeling like forcing discipline is going to start feeling like just who you are and just part of your system. And it's going to become so much easier. Alright, so what are the next steps for you to take? I bet a lot of you guys watching this is the 10th dopamine detox video you've watched, and you're still missing something. And really, deep down, you know what you're missing. You lack that accountability and that structure. And you're unable to fully commit to something because your dopamine is so fried that you can't fully follow a routine on your own. And this isn't your fault. The world is set up this way, but you need that accountability and that structure in your life to truly reach that next level. You know, every single person in the world learned from someone and grew because of a mentor. And that's exactly why I made the bulletproof system. So I have a video linked down below to the 90-day reset that I use in my system, that I used on myself, and that I use with all of my clients to completely retrain their brain to eliminate bad habits, defeat lust, and chase long-term purpose over short-term pleasure, while building a body that is injury-proof, strong, lean, and functioning at peak performance with optimized hormones. So if that sounds interesting to you, go ahead and book the call with me down below, or DM me the word bulletproof on Instagram if you want more info first. If you're still watching this video, then I know you're the kind of guy I would love to work with. You're someone who's motivated to make the changes necessary to start improving your life every single day. So yeah guys, thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more educational masterclasses like this. Send this to a friend who's been struggling with these habits so that it helps them out as well. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.